Hello everyone. Welcome to a new video in our series on how Gen AI is useful for testing and for development in general. Today we are going to look at a new capability that was added in GitHub Copilot, specifically agent mode. Over the past couple of months, everyone has been kind of talking about agent mode, agentic AI, MCP, and whatnot. So in this video, I'm going to actually give you a practical perspective on what agent mode within GitHub Copilot is, and then talk about MCP within that context so that you understand what are these new technologies and how can you use them in your day-to-day development workflow. So let's go. I've written a blog about this recently on my newsletter, which is newsletter.automationhacks.io. It is about unboxing GitHub Copilot agent mode. If you were to come here, you have some details here. This is for paid members of the newsletter. So if you have not yet subscribed, do consider subscribing as it really helps out. Now, before we can begin, let's try to break down these concepts a little bit, right? If you have been following the channel, there are videos on what GitHub Copilot Chat is, what GitHub Copilot Edits is, and how can you use them in your day-to-day workflow. So what is agent mode and how is this different? Well, agent mode takes GitHub Copilot Edits to the next level in the sense that when you talk about edits, it's very specific to a change that you want to make in your project, right? So you give a prompt saying, hey, I want this particular change to be done. Either it is add a new function or add one particular test or refactor something. And the LLM in that particular case, whichever model you choose, is going to go ahead and then, perform that operation. Now, quite often what happens is in a real world, the LLM needs to actually interact with other applications. So it could be different APIs, different data sources, and things like that. So how does an LLM actually understand, how the underlying downstream technology works? So that is where MCP or Model Context Protocol is something that is catching a bit of steam. And if you go to just MCP, search it for it, you can come to this Model Context Protocol site, which is maintained by a community of open source contributors, primarily introduced by Anthropic. This gives you a bunch of details about what MCP is and what does the general architecture look like. We are not going to go very deep into MCP in this video. That will be a follow-up video about this topic. In this video, we'll largely stay true to GitHub Copilot agent mode and just see what is relevant from an MCP perspective. So coming to it, MCP at its nutshell can be thought of as something similar to a client-server architecture only, what you have been hearing since long if you've been following distributed systems and system design. So at its core, there are a bunch of MCP clients. Now, these clients are some of the popular IDEs and applications that you have been probably seeing in the past few months. So GitHub Copilot, Cloud Desktop, Cursor, Windsurf, and it could be like any other surface that wants to leverage the MCP capability. Now, what MCP server is, an MCP server is, you can think of it as something that abstracts a downstream application, an API, a data source, and provides some convenient set of methods with parameters that a client can then make use of. So a simple example here might be, say, GitHub has a set of APIs that allows you to do various operations within GitHub, essentially say create issues, get a list of issues and things like that. Now, in the past, without MCP, any LLM would have to probably do this analysis, figure out, what are the different surface areas for the API and then work with it. MCP kind of makes it more deterministic, wherein the provider, which is GitHub in this case, might expose an MCP server, which will again have similar set of schema. In the sense of like, okay, these are the tools that this particular server exposes. So when you think of an MCP, there are three main things. One is tools. Tools, you can loosely think of it as function calls that the LLM or the client is able to leverage. Then there are resources, which could be, say, a file, a given data source that might be useful for the LLM in order to perform a given operation. And then there could be also certain prompts that the server might expose that the client might use. So there might be well-established prompting pattern that a given MCP server might want to expose, and then a given client doesn't really need to reinvent the wheel, and it can leverage it out of the box. So that's the general architecture with MCP. We are again going to get into more detail in a further video, but I did wanted to talk about this so that you can have a sense of what agent mode is. And agent mode is something that will very closely be able to use tools. So it will be able to use tools to say read files in your code base. It might be able to edit files. It might be able to run commands on terminal and things like that. Of course, with your permission. This video is supported by Educative. Learning to code and design systems is like hitting the gym. You don't build strength by just watching workouts, you need hands-on reps, and that's exactly what Educative offers. Their interactive, text-based courses let you learn by doing, making concepts stick way faster than passive video tutorials. I've been diving into some killer courses. Grokking the Modern System Design Interview is a structured way of breaking real-world system design problems, super helpful for interviews. Grokking the coding interview patterns, instead of memorizing hundreds of lead code problems, this helps to recognize patterns that apply across questions and is a game changer. If you're serious about leveling up, Educative's interactive approach makes learning feel natural and efficient. No fluff, just real coding practice. Try it out, you'll feel the difference. You'll find a link to all these courses in the description box on this video. And now back to the video. So let's get into a little bit of detail with an actual ID. So this has been the test infra project that we have been following along so far. If you're new to this project, you can come to Automation Hacks on GitHub and follow this test infra project. This is a repo in which I'm just experimenting with some test infrastructure and tools and just trying out some different approaches. So you can come here and you can take a look at the main branch. Now, what we are going to discuss is something that I've already kind of iterated with GitHub Copilot Agent mode. So you can come to this branch, which is failure auto fixes, and you can just see what are the different commits that were created. Some of them were created by agent mode. Some of them were something that I wrote. We are, of course, not going to go too much in detail of what these commits are. I want to just focus more from a capability perspective. So let's come to the UI and just take a look at it first, right? So if you come to GitHub Copilot and say I want to start a new chat, what you would see is right out of the box, you now say, hey, edit with Copilot and agent mode. Now you have three different modes in this control. So you can say ask, which is your familiar sort of chat interface where you can ask a question. Edits is the same edit, provide a specific action for Copilot to take. And lastly, you have agent mode. Now, when you come to agent mode, you still have a choice of what underlying models you want to select. So I'm going to use 3.5 Sonnet as an example here. And also, if you notice in agent mode, there is something like tools, right? So this is the new thing here. So you can come here and see, okay, there are certain tools around Mermaid that are already available. You can also add an MCP server to it. In this video, we don't really need to do a lot of it. But yeah, like just know that the capability is here. In case you have a locally running MCP server, you can provide it here as context. Providing context is pretty much kind of same. So you can give the access to the code base, fetch a web page, find certain files, usages, folder, things like that. So you can see that there are different types of contexts that you can provide to agent mode in order to do its job better, right? So what I have here is I have a starting prompt that I've written here, and let me just motivate this a little bit so that you understand the context in which I'm trying to do this. So in this particular code base, we are essentially writing some bunch of tests. So if you come to source test, this is a Java project, by the way. So if you come here and you come to reqres, you'll see there are a bunch of tests here, which are your rest assured tests that hit a certain rest assured API. And then, once they are done with these tests, they do push out their results into report portal. which is a reporting framework that we can use in Java. I'll link to a set of videos in case you're curious about understanding this observability platform, but that's besides the point for this video. So yeah, you have these different tests, right? Now, after what might happen in a practical scenario is these tests will keep on running. Some of these tests will fail. And you want to provide certain capabilities to the developers who are responsible for these tests, so that they can get better signals on, okay, why this test failed. Maybe do some initial set of analysis for you and potentially even use an LLM to fix these issues. So that is the general problem I want agent mode to solve. Now, this is a fairly, I would say, mid-size feature to implement if you were to do it without agent mode. But let's just see how agent mode works with this. And in the process, just understand how it actually works, right? So here I have the starting prompt. I'm giving a persona that you are a Java programmer and I want you to implement a developer productivity feature. And I describe the problem here that I want you to be able to connect to a report portal instance that's running locally on this machine, and then figure out a reason for a failing test from a stack trace, and then suggest a fix for all of the tests that are present in this package. I also additionally give it some guideline that, hey, this should be built in a scalable manner such that the code is concise, follows clean coding practices, and uses small modular methods that follow single responsibility principle and are easily extensible, just to nudge it to not write code which is very basic in nature, but maybe a little bit more refined. I also provide context in terms of, hey, this is the report portal MCP server. So we can potentially just take a quick look at this, just to see what MCP servers are all about. So this is one MCP server that developers from Report Portal have already put out. So you can see like, so this allows any LLM to basically interact with Report Portal directly. It does expose some functionality like list the test suits with pagination, get a detail of a launch by name, view reports, and things like that. This is a Go binary, and this requires you to have Go and then run it locally, set up the project host token, bunch of other things, right? So I just gave this MCP server as a context. It won't be very relevant for this specific use case, but know that in case you want to use an MCP server, yeah, that capability is here. And I also give it the API docs for Report Portal. So like, I want to make sure that Report Portal has a hook into how the Report Portal API really looks like. So these APIs automatically documented. So I'm expecting, yeah, that if this has been scraped by the LLM, and then they might be able to figure out, additional context and details. So this is, I feel, is good enough. So let's see how agent mode tackles this. So I'll put it as a starting context here and just run. That's about it. So you'll see now Copilot is going to start working on this. The first thing it does is actually it searches the code base. So this is where the tool calls really make sense. So what you can see is it's reading the code base and then figuring out, okay, what are the files, what files are relevant. It then tries to understand that, okay, this has some integration already and we want to build this particular integration. Again, it does additional further searches, to gather more context. Then it says, okay, it brings up more detail that it is rightfully a test ng, rest assured, and report portal project, and we want to build this feature. So first of all, it goes into this route of let's create a service to interact with this API to fetch the failure information, then create something of an analyzer to process the failures, and then finally integrate it into the existing infrastructure. So you can see now it created a client file, and you can see that this is a file that it created with 65 insertions and 1 deletions. So agent mode is at work and it's trying to create some artifacts for you. So let's see what it is coming up with here. Let me just collapse this for a moment. Yeah. So you can see this is this looks like a client file, and it connects to the localhost API, has an OK HTTP client. Then it has a method to get test failures. So essentially, okay, it's using some item API and attaching, that it wants to fetch failed cases seems reasonable. Then makes the API call. If it is not successful, returns an error. Otherwise, tries to get the response. It also has get a method to get the launch ID, which is report portal speak for the last test suite that was run, which also seems like a good idea. Okay. And it also says, okay, let me create a test analyzer service. Okay. So what does this analyzer service looks like? Um, yeah, so it has again a map. It has some common patterns. So these are some bit of regexes which are like, okay, I expected this status code, but this um it's creating out some common patterns. So null pointer exception, connection diffuse, timeout, things like that. So essentially it takes a bunch of failures as an input and then yeah, it figures out what's the issue, then find some suggested fix, okay, and put something in the analysis. Okay, find suggested fixes, trying to do a search in the map. Is the test flaky? Got it. So this also looks decent. I haven't really, of course, gone line by line, but and it creates an analyzer service, which is, let's take a look at that. Okay, so it also has a model for how to capture a failure with name, status, end time, issue, and some statistics, which are like, okay, yeah, what kind of bug it is, what kind of defect it is, sure. Now it says, okay, let me create a class that was referenced by it. And now you'll see this is one interesting bit that agent mode won't keep on going on infinitely in one direction. It allows you as a developer to take a pause and then change the course of action if required. So you have an option to either continue, let the agent continue in that fashion, or pause and then change your prompt in order to nudge it into a different direction. For now, I'm curious to see how it continues. So I'm just going to say continue. And you can see it again proceeds with the next set of actions. You can see all the files that have been changed are kind of listed here. So you can have a way of figuring out, okay, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Also, if you see, you can open, when you open a file, you can actually accept the file if this is a change that looks okay to you, or you can undo that given change, or you can also just review the diff. So since these are all new files, you don't really get much value out of looking at the diff, but you can just review these as a developer. And then you can also use this control to toggle through different files that are put in and take an action. Do you want to keep it or do you want to undo it? So as a developer, you are actually in control. You can even like while the agent is going on in a direction, if you feel it's not going in the right direction, you can very well just pause this, or you can also just cancel the whole thing. So yeah, for now, what is it trying to do? It's trying to get some analysis summary. It's trying to get some statistics in terms of pass fail. Um, yeah, so it's trying to get test failure analysis by TestNG, extending TestNG adapter. Okay, let's see. So this is a listener that is extending iTest listener. This is usually a good idea because that will be the hook onto our test suite. Once the test suite finishes is when we want the analysis to be triggered. So you can see on finish, it's trying to get, okay, what was the launch name? Uh, if the launch name was not set, it's trying to just return a warning. Otherwise, it's trying to get the launch ID. Then it's trying to get the test failures. Uh, then try to do analysis and then print the result of the analysis, which is more like, okay, I went through a bunch of failures and then what happened? Okay. So now you can see this is also trying to edit the build.creative. So yeah, it says, okay, we have the core components in place. I see that we have a test listener in place already that has notifications. So it's trying to just integrate it in the existing listener only. Okay, so if you come to test listener, it says, okay, so it actually puts in similar steps here, which, yeah, it doesn't seem like very nice because you already have another listener that it added, right? So this seems a bit of duplication. I think the agent mode went into a different path than I would have liked it to go. And then it updates build.gradle file. Okay, got it. Now you can see it's actually doing different actions as it's going through. Now, after it has its implementation, it also validates everything. So it does a check in terms of whether, all the files will build or not. If there are some issues, so you can see that there are some compilation issues, it's going to fix them beforehand, which is very nice. Um, it will try to make sure that you have working code as part of its interaction. So this is a really nice behavior. So let's let it continue for a while. You can see it added OK HTTP as a dependency, and that's about it. Also, one useful tip is when you're working with agent mode, you can just leverage Git in order to have certain saved points as well, where you can just go back. So once you're comfortable with a given set of changes, you can just make a commit out of it so that then you can leverage Git as well to have a history and then go back if required. Um, yeah, so what it is doing now is, okay, now it's trying to fix the compilation errors. All right. Hmm. So if you see now, agent mode is pretty much doing something autonomously. I didn't have to touch anything so far. I, as the human engineer, are kind of following the changes along and also then have forming my own intuition in terms of whether the direction is correct or not. So once it is at a stopping point, maybe it would make sense to actually stop and then like evaluate whatever it has written, maybe nudge it to improve the code quality, bunch of other things. But for now, I just want to make sure that it reaches a stable state where the build works. And I want to show you that it's able to also run tests with user control. So let's just give it maybe few more minutes. Okay, it's trying to figure out unused imports, missing imports. Hmm. Okay. Now another call out is you can also parallelly just open this project in IntelliJ and you can do a build right there. You can even like use a lot of the refactorings that IntelliJ provides to do a bunch of these easily. So yeah, but like for now we'll let the agent mode continue and see it's applying the edits. Okay, it checks if all the compilation errors have been fixed. Still finds one more problem. Hmm. Okay, so it says now the implementation is complete. Uh, Okay, so it says you can pretty much run a test now. So let's just copy the command and then we can run it on the terminal. Okay, so you can see now the tests run. Okay, so we have a build issue. So I can say the build fails. Can you please fix this? Now, agent mode is able to actually filter your terminal in the sense of whatever stack trace have come in on the terminal and then make fixes as well. So you can say, okay, I'll help you fix. Do you want me to run this command? And yes, I will allow it to run the command. Now, when you run it in this particular mode, it's able to have the context of, okay, what exactly is going wrong. And it can also make fixes based on that. So this is a very nice feature with agent mode. Um, okay, so you can see these dependencies are in test implementation, but we are trying to use the main source code. Okay, so it's trying to move the files. Sure, I'll let you move it. So anytime it needs to run a terminal command, it will ask you. There are also, and there's also an option for you to select that, hey, I want to just give you permission to run the command directly. Okay, so, all right, move it. All right, continue. Yeah, these refactorings might be very simple with IntelliJ. But let's see if it fixes the issue. All right, so I think looks like the build is okay and it's able to run the tests. Most of them fail. This is due to an issue that I'm aware of. Actually, Regress introduced an API key, and that is the reason those tests are failing due to missing key. So it gives a 401 because it's missing a header that needs to be added. But what you can see is these tests failed, and agent mode is able to detect that yes, the tests are failing. It's also able to divide them into categories that okay, that there is 401 errors here. Then it understands that okay, this looks like an authorization problem, so it's trying to then search the code base to see if there is any configuration or not. Um, okay, it's able to figure out the issue. So it says, okay, we can add this API key to the rest assured requests. And since it is a common requirement, it can also create a custom sort of base spec in the base class. So yeah, that sounds good. So it's trying to create a base test. And it has, it adds the default block where it has authorization, bearer, and the API key. In reality, Regress needs it in a different format. So if you come to this site, you can say get free API key. It actually requests it in this format. So yeah, I know for a fact that these will fail. Um, but yeah, we can just make that change. And it's nice to see that that agent mode is able to figure that out. It's also refactoring the code with that future extensibility in mind. Um, And yeah, I think you can pretty much keep on going with agent mode. I think if I pair with it for some time, I did pair on this earlier and I had a slightly different implementation. But yeah, it's like you can keep on going, iterate pretty fast. Wherever it's wrong, you can stop, nudge it in the right direction, or take control back into your own hands and then like make the fixes. In general, what I've seen is the implementations that it comes up with are decent, but they need a bit more polish for scalability for the most part. And that is something that you as a human engineer can definitely do. So I think I am satisfied for this video. So I'm going to let agent mode take some rest. I'm going to pause the entire thing. So with this video, I hope you get a good sense of what GitHub Copilot Agent Mode is. Just to summarize, it's able to use tools, it's able to use MCP server, it's able to then run commands on terminals, prompt the developer for additional permissions if required. It's able to refactor code and bunch of other things. So this is definitely Copilot Edits on supercharged mode. Excited to see how this evolves into say multiple agent workflows, become more sophisticated, and something that you can use in your day-to-day development. So I do hope you'll use this mode more frequently. Using it in VS Code is the most simplest way of accessing it, but I'm pretty sure the same feature will be available in IntelliJ and other editors pretty soon. So yeah, if you have thoughts on agent mode, if you've tried something else, do let me know in the comments what your personal experience has been. Where do you see it works, where it doesn't work, and let's learn from each other. If you found this video helpful, do give this video a like and a thumbs up. That really motivates me to put out more content. Do give the channel a sub as well, and I'll see you next time.